What's up, Zox fan? We're back with some more of the First Descendant. Now, we finally got Hailey done. And yes, this is a full build. I want to get into if this character is going to be worth your time, especially for those of you guys that are on a time restraint. And you're really honestly trying to make sure you're making some really solid investment choices. Now, we're going to jump right into her. I do want to give a disclaimer, though, that this character is not fully built simply because she does not have her Transcendence module, right? And that is because they just haven't implemented in the game. That's going to be, if I'm not mistaken, the next update that we get, they should be implementing that. So at the recording of this video, she does not have it, but she is very much still extremely powerful and extremely usable even without it. So a lot of us are just extremely hyped to see what her Transcendence is going to be doing, which we will be revisiting her when that time comes, because it very well could change some of the focal points based off of what she ends up having amplified or changed in her kit. All right. So I just want to kind of throw that out there. Now, getting into what she does, the very first skill here is the cryo round, right? Now, this is chill and dimensional. Basically, it fires a cryo round at enemies in the front to deal damage to inflict the cryo, I guess if you want to call this stack, right? And I guess it's also like combination stack and debuff. So it targets with the cryo stacks, receive additional damage and lose one stack when hit by Hailey's firearm attack. So when she basically hits them or shoots them, right? Now, with that, okay, this is going to be a max fire count of 9 bullets, and it will hit 9 targets, right? Now, of course, with that, if there's only one, then it just hits that one target. But if there's, multiple enemies in front of you, it will hit multiple enemies. Now, essentially with this, the Cairo is basically going to be giving you an additional damage of 50% for each person that it hits. So I know some people wanted this to like hit super, super hard, which I feel like the damage is still pretty fair, but it actually is amping some of your damage that you're dealing, right? Now, of course, with that, you also have the flash freezing, which is going to have an action speed reduction of -5% per stack. And then when you're fighting Colossus / commanders, that will then be a -1% per stack, right? So it's 5% for regular enemies when you're on Colossuses or Commanders, which are your some of your like elite bosses that you fight. It's going to be 1%, right? Now, going into the second skill, this is a pretty predominant skill. I've seen some pretty interesting builds with this ability because the freezing beam is ridiculous. I think the only other character in the game that even remotely comes close to this type of scale power modifier scaling is Blair, right? Like literally the only other character. So Hailey is now like up there, right? So basically with this, the Storm Snare unleashes a chill vortex around her, knocking back hit targets and firing a massive freeze beam in the direction of the crosshairs and inflicts cryo, on targets hit based on enemy AoE. Now, the big thing with this is that, like I said, you get that knockback. I think a lot of us thought that this was going to be something that was like super OP and like farming, but I will say that, like, I don't know. I guess you could try spamming it, but I still feel like people want to use this on bosses. Like that's just what it seems to be, right? Again, you still have the cryo buff here for the additional damage. You have the flashing freeze, which is going to give you that action speed reduction, and of course, it shifts when it's on a colossal damage, a colossal boss. Now, again, with her being at an 8,902 multiplier, that is absolutely insane when you're talking about how that's going to be wiping things off of the face of the planet. So really stupid ability in a good way, right? Now, the third skill here, this is going to be Cold Fury. Now, Cold Fury is going to be really interesting because this basically will grant Hailey Cold Fury every second. And the effect gradually decreases her movement speed, but greatly increases her firearm and skill critical hit rate and firearm penetration. Now, the thing is that it says when Cold Fury reaches maximum stacks, Hailey becomes immune to knockdown and gains an increase to her firearm and skill critical hit damage. However, when using roll or grappling hook, the stacks decrease, right? So the main thing about this ability is that essentially you can get her values up to 100%. So her critical hit and for her skill and for her firearm, it can get up to 100% with this. And it's absolutely insane because they can be at that percentage simultaneously. Now, of course, with this ability, it's important to note that it is draining your MP. And I'm going to show you guys that. It drains your MP at the exact same time while it's giving you that amp. And you'll see the stacks on the side, which again, I'll show you that as well. But as far as like the things within the build that I've gone for, I tried to make sure that I was reducing some of that cooldown, which I'll show you that in the build. Because again, additional buffs at max stacks of Cold Fury. You get that skill critical hit damage increase of 20%. And then you also get that fire critical hit damage increase of 20%. So she's actually really insane for just bossing and just doing crazy high level damage. Like she's just absolutely insane for it. Now, of course, with the skill 4, what we basically have here is Zenith. Zenith is probably my favorite ability in the game, not gonna lie. She basically will transform any weapon that is in her hand to the unique weapon. And when hitting an enemy with the unique weapon, greatly increases penetration and firearm attack, and then deals additional chill skill damage. Recovers a portion of MP upon successfully hitting weak points, and then partially decreases the cooldown of the unique weapon skill when the skill ends, depending on the number of fired bullets. So this is a really big play on not only making sure that your character is built properly, but also your gun is built to scale the weapon for the unique transformation, right? So we're referring to how much ammo you can hold, right? Now, the main thing is that at default, you have a 4 bullets that you start off with. I've seen this go as high as if I'm not mistaken, as 7. So yeah, like it gets kind of ridiculous. Now, again, the base damage comes from the equipped weapon. So whatever weapon is in your hand, that becomes the base damage of the unique weapon. The firearm attack increase amount is 50%. You get those 4 shots at base, and then MP recovery from weak point attacks is 15%, right? So very, very straightforward. Now, as far as the build, now I want to actually talk about this in conjunction to my gun because I think it is really important whether you're using a sniper or if you're using something like the Enduring Legacy. There's a couple of different things that you want to make sure you have on the gun to making sure you're getting more value or more shots basically on the sniper. Now, essentially what we're running, mid-air maneuvering. That varies, personal preference. You can use the other grapple if you choose to. We have emergency measures, front lines. So these are like our standard crit valued, modules. We do have skill insight on as well. So that's giving us more emphasis on skill critical rate. We have HP increase or increased HP, dangerous ambush, of course, for when landing a skill attack while the enemy is not targeting you, skill power plus 24.9%. And if they're immobilized, it's 49.8%. We have maximized conservation on. Now, what this is doing is giving us that skill cost reduction, but we do lose some skill power modifier. Doesn't really matter, not necessarily, because she's already hitting like a truck. So for us to be able to get a reduction on how much it costs, that saves us some MP. Because remember, when you're using your skill, it costs MP, but then you're also having your MP drained at the same time. So any way that you can kind of conserve that is going to be really nice, especially if you're on your own. Now, if you're paired up with like a character like Luna, for example, then you're good because she can constantly restore that MP, which is where, again, it kind of emphasizes the nature of the game, which is team composition, which is also what this build kind of is more catered for. Now, we're using Chill Specialist, which gives us the chill skill power. We're using Nimble Fingers, which is giving us some more skill cooldown. We have Shot Focus, which is going to be increasing some of that firearm attack, which is already another thing that's being emphasized in our kit. It is going to take down some of our skill power modifier, but again, we have so much of it, it's like, it doesn't really matter as much. And then lastly, with the time distribution, this can vary as, like, again, this is your flex slot. I would say for those that are a little bit more casual, you don't want to necessarily module this right away if you don't want to. I would say that I'm probably am because you can swap between it. And actually, I would recommend you should, right? Because you can swap between basically say, like, for example, if I did this for the Malachite, I could go back to the regular base slot that is currently and just have it placed with something else, right? Like if I need resistances or whatever it is in the build. But this is giving skill cooldown minus 14.3% and then some additional HP value because, again, you might notice that we're not using any defense, but we are getting some of that defense from our external components. So again, you're going to have to adjust this build according to what your preference is. You might need some defense. So you might say, hey, you know what? I don't necessarily need this skill cooldown or as much. Let me put some defense on. Because the other thing is too, like I mentioned in the previous video, I actually have some skill cooldown on my external component. So I could technically take this off, but I'm a spaz with this ability. So I want to get off as many potential shots as I can and being able to have the ability back up. So again, you can do whatever you want with this slot. Just kind of keep in mind that this is a personal preference. This is not what I'm telling you you have to do. Really, honestly, you don't have to do anything. But I would definitely say if you are one of those people that are like, hey, I want to make sure I'm building my unit to where I'm able to survive, go ahead, take that piece off, right? And let's just do that for visuals so you guys can see it, right? And then you can go and do something like, I'd say you could do spear and shield, right? So do spear and shield, and there you go, right? So now you have some defensive value, which will give your unit some more sustain, right? So that's entirely up to you. And I guess we'll keep that for right now, right? Moving on to the weapons, what we are using is the Piercing Light and the Enduring Legacy. I will say these are two excellent guns just across the board in the game generally, but on Hailey, they also are extremely good. Now, keep in mind that the Cold Fury is giving her 100% firearm crit rate and skill crit rate. So again, this is applying to her guns. And even if you're not using your skill 4 or your skill 2, this is still something that she can take advantage of and is allowing her to always make sure she's critting, which is just kind of insane when you kind of think about it. Now, as far as the gun, some important things that we have here, I'll show you for at least the Hailey build, because I do have this built slightly different if I'm just using it generally for anyone else. We have rifling reinforcement, concentration priority, better insight. So, you know, kind of looking at like our firearm attack, crit damage stuff. We got weak point damage on weak point sight. We have better concentration, which is that critical hit damage for firearm. We also have slow art. This could also be replaced with action reaction if you want, but it really honestly doesn't matter. We have weak point detection, which is more weak point damage. And then we have that expand weapon charge, okay? Very, very important. That's how when you transform, you get the extra bullet. Of course, again, if you want to go for more of that, you can try to get some of the, like, I think it's like in a magazine expand for the sub. Do I recommend doing that? Not really. I just feel like you rather have the damage there and make it work with whatever modules you can, but it's entirely up to you. Then, of course, we have fire enhancement, which is going to give you that extra fire attack based off of your firearm attack. Now, here's where things get a little bit interesting, and this can kind of vary based off of preference. I was testing out this, and this actually didn't do too bad, but the special sight, so movement speed when aiming is minus 30% and weak point damage when aiming is plus 30%. The main thing about this is not on a timer. With, like, for example, the expansion, weak point expansion is a cooldown of 10 seconds, but it's 140%. Considering that typically when you're trying to shoot the sniper shots, you're just trying to get damage out. This could be really good depending on what you're fighting. But I definitely will say that this can also still work. So special sight, weak point expansion. Again, she's not moving in that mode, so her movement speed doesn't really matter because she can't move anyway, right? She's locked into the sniper scope. So again, very, very important there. And then, of course, for my enduring, the main thing that you want to make sure you have, oh, let me click it. There we go. The main thing that you want to make sure that you have is, of course, the weapon exchange, or sorry, weapon charge expand, right? So that you can get that extra ammo. Now, keep in mind, guys, that this isn't necessarily giving your gun more ammo. It's more ammo to the magazine, right? So you're still going to have your capacity, I think, of like 300, but it puts, instead of like, I think normally without it's like 115, it goes up to like 171 for like the Enduring Legacy. So that just kind of paints that picture and gives you, you know, that perspective there. But again, some of the same things here: rifling reinforcement, concentration priority, better insight, better concentration, action reaction. We have vibration absorption, that expand weapon charge, edging shot for some more firearm critical rate, fire rate up, and then sharp precision shot. Now, I know some of you guys are going to probably say, well, because Hailey gives you 100% crit, couldn't you just change your gun and make it X, Y, and Z? Well, if you're casual, I would say you still want to use your gun and build your guns according to the fact that you're probably going to use them on other characters. If you are playing like me or other players that are putting in way more time, that you could do more unique builds where the gun is more catered to the character, so you can take off that crit rate because she's going to have that uptime with the mana. But I would even argue that once she runs out of mana, you still want to probably have, especially if it's a longer fight, still your own innate crit damage values on the gun, so that you're able to still get a lot out of it, right? Now, of course, that's basically that. I want to talk about, of course, the external component. Now, I still have the reactor and external component. Now, I still need to go and farm the right one for the mount, because that's a massive amount of skill power that she's going to be getting. But essentially, I have one that has, again, still the skill power boost ratio, which is still good, which is chill and singular. Then we're going with skill cooldown and skill cost, because, again, the faster we can and the cheaper that those abilities are, the better we'll be able to, or the more we'll be able to get off some damage, right? Now, I will say for external components, this is just a grind in its own. I still have to farm a ton of bosses to get the right exact external components that I want. But I would definitely say if you're more casual, aim for the right stats, right? Before you try to aim for the perfect quote unquote set bonus, right? Now the set bonus that I'm currently working on, obviously I'm using a 2-set for the sniper rifle and scout rifle critical rate plus 5%. But I really want that 4-set because then I get that skill cooldown of minus 4.7%. That's really what I'm looking for, because granting the buff to allies, she doesn't really necessarily do that. But outside of that, you are still going to be getting a lot of value. I would say some stats you want to look for here. HP, MP recovery in combat is actually pretty huge for her, because again, she needs to use mana in order to keep up her values for that damage scaling that she's doing. Then of course, like I said, more max HP, defense. Like these are the values that you want to look for, especially considering the kit. If you're trying to go for less of those values in the actual modules, then you want to try to make up for some of it in your external components. So that's basically what I tried to do. I do have like the skill duration on, but it doesn't really necessarily matter so much for that set. But I would definitely say the sniper set is one of the ones that I'm actually trying to go for right now. So yeah, that's basically that. All right, guys. So we're loading into a public pyromaniac. Now, I wanted to do this to make this as realistic as possible, because this is probably what you'll experience. Now, again, this isn't like my squad I normally run with where we have strats, because I know a lot of you guys are probably just going to queue in the pubs and try to see if you can beat stuff, right? So let's go ahead. Let's throw up her little Cold Fury thing for skill 3 and get that going. Let's go into the ADS here. All right. And what we're trying to hit those weak points. Look at that. Massive. Massive. Oh, let's go with the B here. Sorry, skill 2. Boom. No, he went immune. Ah, we almost killed him. Oh my God. Dude, you know what's crazy? That just kind of, again, look at how much health this freaking dude has. Now, mind you, there was another Hailey on this team. So just this chick alone together is just so dumb. And this is with a squad of 4, mind you. So the boss has way more like scaling comparatively if we were just doing this with 2 Haileys, right? So if there was only 2 Haileys in here, this would be stupid easy. All right, so oh my God, the melt, dude. Hold on, let me see if I can hit this. Can I? There we go. Give me my shot. Yeah. Oh my God. Dude, how long is that? That was like a minute? I don't even know. It doesn't even matter. Holy crap. I don't even need anything in here. Okay. So let's see. What was the results there? So granted, it was so fast. So the idea of damage also in this game too is the longer the fight, the more damage you obviously should do. So with that short time frame between me and that other Hailey, we basically did all the damage. So that was the fight, right? Now again, like I said, this is in a group setting. If you're looking at trying to do this solo, it's definitely doable. Again, you just have to kind of be mindful of like hitting certain points to make the boss drop. But like I said, for the most part, I don't see everybody necessarily trying to solo everything, and nor do I want to keep promoting soloing when they're honestly shifting things to be in more group settings for, I mean, again, that's what players are asking for. And then 2, that's also what they've even pushed as far as scaling in the game. So let's actually go all the way back to Albion. Now, ultimately, is Hailey going to be worth the investment? I personally feel like she's an absolutely insane bossing unit, and we still have to kind of wait to see how she's going to perform in mobbing. I think that that's one of the big takeaways here is I feel like she again performs extremely well against bosses, but when you talk about the value that she brings to a mobbing situation, well, yeah, obviously she can get rid of bosses like they're nothing, like including these, the mid bosses that we end up having to fight in these different dungeons and hard difficulty. She completely deletes them. But I think as far as ad control or just being able to kind of have some sort of like just awareness or synergy for a mobbing situation, she's not necessarily the best unit for that. And she doesn't really have anything that's giving her value for that yet. So what I'm actually hoping is that she gets a transcendence that allows her to be able to mob better, especially for those that do end up wanting to invest into her, because that again will allow her to be able to essentially cover multiple different roles, and you could of course build for that like many of the other characters. So I'm expecting that she probably will get something along the lines to help her with mobbing better, but who really knows? But as it stands, do I feel like she's a character that's worthwhile investing in, especially if you're either just coming into the First Descendant or if you have been playing? I feel like Hailey actually is worth the grind. In comparison to Luna, which is kind of weird to say, I feel like she just has more innate value when you're talking about her just being able to perform. I feel like Luna, yes, is excellent unit if you can get her down packed, but I will say that there is definitely a skill ceiling to using Luna, and if you're not good at using her skills and making sure you don't mess up on her rhythm game, then you kind of don't really want to play her, right? Like, I think that that's definitely a big point there. I feel like Hailey's a pretty easy unit, to kind of start learning on, but I will say that she does take some skill to be able to use, especially in fights when you're talking about you need to make sure you're timing when you're using and going into your sniper ability, understanding how far your distances are between you and the opponent, and then of course mana management is also another really important thing. So if you can master those things, Hailey is actually going to be a really fun character, and I would even argue that she's right up there with Glay in terms of like just being a really good gun damage user, and she actually kind of has a little bit of not only Glay but also Lepic. So I feel like again overall excellent choice of a descendant to invest in. Really fun. So again, it's ultimately up to you on what you want to do. Let me know what you guys think about Hailey. How do you feel about her? Like I said, this is just one of many builds that exist for her. So that's going to be basically that, guys. I hope that this was able to help everyone. Stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.